What up, guys? Jason Guyman here tonight. And tonight, I know I put what I put on there, but it may change. I'm sure it will change. If you want to learn how to grow a Christmas light business, you definitely want to hang out and listen because we're going to talk. And I know I put this on the pressure washing channel. And honestly, if you want to learn how to grow your pressure washing average ticket, I put the average how to get your average ticket up. In all, business is business, and you can take these principles into either one of them. And so tonight we got Paul Gardner on here learning about. He's a good friend, and he is one that if you haven't heard him speak, he is definitely worth speaking. And he has grown several businesses, not just one, but he didn't just happen overnight, right? I feel like a lot of people in this generation, even more and more, is everybody wants this to get paid a lot of money and not do any work. And even as Paul was running 5, 6 businesses, he may not look like he's doing a lot of work, but there's still a lot of work that he has to do to make sure everything is going good. And so that is what we're going to hit on tonight. I don't know where this will probably go, but I'm sure you will get value because every time we talk to Paul, there's value. I know last time we had him on, everybody was like, man, that was a great podcast. So again, share it out with your friends, all of that good stuff. So that way you can help people and let other people learn. But with that, Paul, just and if let me know in the comments how my audio is, especially when Paul's talking. If we're starting to get echo, please let me know so I can mute myself if I have to. So with that, Paul, just for anybody that doesn't know who are you, and where just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, Paul Gardner. I'm from Virginia, born and raised. I went to college in Pensacola, Florida. I went to a Christian college, Pensacola Christian College. Met my wife there. We just celebrated our 24th anniversary this week.
That's awesome.
And- Yep, yep. And then 6 kids later, still trying to figure it out. So it's like business. It's I'm learning as I get older. As a matter of fact, I was working with two of my boys or over the weekend, and there was certain tools they didn't know the names of, and I thought I had done such a poor job as a dad. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do better with the next four, and I feel like business is so much the same way. It's like you're learning as a dad. One of my boys is 22, and the other one's 19, and I was shocked when they didn't know certain names of tools. So that's my life in a nutshell. I mean, it's all about my family and my faith and business.
Good point. So, one of the things that when we first started this out, um, I want to hit on what I actually named this because I feel like it is important that we name it what I did. But before we get there, I know we got some pretty cool people in the audience I want to hit on. We got Ventura checking in, ready to learn. Superior, been contemplating for the last 2 seasons, but finally pulling the trigger, adding Christmas lights this year, which is great. We got JC in the house. Good evening, gents. Happy Xmas Eve in August. And then I did see my audio is echoing a little bit, so I'll probably be muting myself when I talk to Paul. But with that, what let's talk a little bit about the average ticket and getting it up. And I know you're in a lot of different businesses and you know the importance of this, and you know that I preach the heck out of this. And this is year 4 or 5 for you. Let's talk a little bit about what that means to you of getting your average ticket up. Not, I know a lot of guys I talk to them, and one guy's in the group and his average ticket's like $400, and he's trying to give all these people advice, and it's like, dude, you need to take some advice first before you start giving advice. And if your average ticket's $400 or $500, what are some things that we can do to be able to get these average tickets up here to the $2,000 range?
I think the main thing is really understand the cost of doing business. Too often, I see guys in any industry. I see this where they don't seriously know what it costs to actually run their business. They always look at it and say, "Oh, I just sold that job for $500 and it only took me 2 hours." And they forget about the fact that there's all that cost that it took to even get that lead in the first place, to get those people to call you or to know about you, the advertisements. There's also the idea of paying those employees or yourself, even outside those hours, all those times that you're having to spend working inside the business and where that time is allocated to. I think there's also a lack of understanding of just like simple costs like fuel, insurance. Uh, so often we forget about taxes. I saw this reel the other day, and it really, got to me because so many guys see this type of content and they go with it and they think it's for them to go into business for themselves because they think, oh, I can make that a reality for myself. But it was this kid who was probably in his mid 20s, and he talked about how one of the businesses I own is a design build landscape company, and this particular kid was, he has a lot of content. I went through after that and looked, and he has a lot of reels, and they're all the same thing. And almost every reel I looked at was the same problem I saw. But he basically said how I made $2,000 in 2 days with two guys, and it was a concrete job, and so I know what it costs for concrete, and generally speaking, concrete's relatively the same cost no matter where you are. And if I even took the lower end of concrete costs and I took the labor costs of what, nationally speaking, what you would pay a good concrete guy, and then he was talking about the fact that he made the $2,000. He talked about the material costs. He talked about the labor costs, and then he says, "So I took home $600." So he basically was saying that between the two employees and the concrete costs, because those are the things he attributed, he said, "I took home $600 and didn't even touch the job." So all these people who are on the outside looking in are thinking to themselves, "Hey, I can make $600. I don't even have to do anything. All I got to do is hire two guys that are capable of doing concrete work, sub it out, and I'm making all that money." But he failed to mention the insurance. He failed to mention the taxes. He failed to mention the fact that it took money to get that advertisement out that probably led to the job in the first place. He didn't even consider the time that it took him to probably negotiate the deal, negotiate the contract, to get the contract. And there's so many other things like that I see people fail at. So I think the first thing people need to better understand is what it really costs to run a business. And then from there, I think it's becoming an expert in your field. You need to be at the top of your game. Don't always follow the flow of the path that everyone else has taken. Try to be someone that thinks outside of that. And those are the ways I always create value in different industries. Those are kind of the starting points.
So, and that's a good point. I actually seen a guy in the group today was asking about insurance, and he was like, "Oh my God, it's so expensive." And it's like, yeah, and as you grow this business, other things are going to get you and become expensive. I know people that, like you said, taxes. I've seen it more than once. Of come April, May, someone's like, "Man, we had a great year, and now I owe 50, 60, $70,000 in taxes." And then if you have people that haven't been paying attention, they don't have that 50 or 60,000. They didn't do profit first and put another bank account that 15% of your money or 10% of your money goes into this account so that you don't eat it all up in taxes. And it's important that you understand that. But how do you overcome that? Just because, man, Jason says that you should charge high pricing and all of this, but nobody in my area is charging that. I'm not. I charge. I'm in Virginia, and I'm at $7 a foot, and there's nobody in Virginia charging that because I haven't seen them myself. So how do you overcome that mindset? And a lot of this is mindset at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, here in my local area, most people are not charging even $6 in some cases. There's guys out there already advertising on Marketplace $200-300 just to put up your lights. So I mean I have the same situation that most of you do in your location. I would tell you that I really don't pay attention much what other people are doing. I think you can spend too much time worrying about what the others are doing. and then it becomes a conflict with your thoughts. What I concentrate on is, like I said before, is trying to be the best at what I do. And generally speaking, I will say that most people aren't able to get $7, $8, $9, $10, especially a foot, because you know what? They're probably not worth it because of the work they're putting out. The performance isn't there. The quality of the product, the quality of the service, the quality of the delivery and the installation. And so I would say that most people are just concentrating on what it costs to for them to do it in their mind, and it's usually, "Oh, it cost me $25 an hour for this guy, so therefore it cost me 6 hours," and that's what they think. And then the other thing is, what did I charge? And so in that, you know, spread, they think they've made X amount of dollars. When in reality, they need to understand the cost of doing business, and then they need to realize that in order for this to be sustainable, because it isn't about making $100 an hour, $200, it really has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with understanding the value of the service you're delivering, and if it's sustainable with the type of marketing you have to do. Because you are going to have to overcome some hurdles if other people in your market are charging $4 and $5 a foot, $6 a foot, and you're charging 10 like we are. You're gonna have to overcome those hurdles by out marketing the other guys. You're gonna have to do a better job at putting yourself in the right channels, and marketing to the right people, and those things cost money to do.
No, I agree. And I wanted to hit on this just because it is important, and I feel like a lot of times don't believe me that people can get $2,000 average ticket, and that you can. I know people that are getting $3,000 average tickets, right? And Dan and Lindy, they're close to $3,000, and so this is what you can get by charging premium pricing, and you know there is a point that you might get too overpriced, but there's also a point of where you need to be at and keep selling what you can. And I know people that their average ticket's 5 grand. Down in Florida, there's places that people are their average ticket's 5 grand. And so that's important. That one of the biggest thing I always say is get around people that are where you want to be at is the key ingredient to a lot of this, because when you're around people that don't believe that you can get that much for Christmas lights, like when I started my Christmas light business, I had a good friend that was a landscaper, and he was like, "Oh, I quit doing Christmas lights, there's no money in that." And I'm like, "The way we're doing it, there's money into it. Whatever you were doing, obviously there." He's like, "I was only getting $200-300 and there ain't no money into it." And so you got to be careful into the people that are listening to at the end of the day, because you can be listening to someone telling you somebody that's false information. So with that, what how I think the biggest thing of why people can't get this is mindset. Let's go into the mindset realm, because you know I always say mindset, and the more you learn about mindset, it's important that you learn about mindset and how mindset works. So let's talk about the mindset of people. And I know you've done a lot of training and different things, but let's talk a little bit about mindset. And again, if there's any rabbit trails you want to go down, we can go down those too. So that's what we got here tonight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a mindset issue for years, and I was a successful business owner from most perspectives. A lot of when I started my sign company 25 years ago, I probably did what the average person does that starts a business. I called the competition, and staged me as a customer, and really just based my pricing on what other people how they were pricing things. But all along that journey, I realized there was flaws in their way they did things, whether it was their approach, whether I would call there and realize they didn't answer the phone well. I was like, their customer service is horrible. The person on the other end is rude. I can do better than that. So I would improve on that, and then I would see the quality of their designs were terrible, and then I would see the quality of the delivery or the product. Their marketing materials looked horrible. And so in every area where I saw they were doing something wrong, I would improve on it. So I always thought, well, that's good because I'm a better company than them, but I'm still charging the same price. And in reality, I was actually costing me more to do those things. But I also realized this I didn't want to be the guy that was living paycheck to paycheck. And I wanted to grow an operation that was sustainable not just for myself, but for the guys that were working for me. So if something were to happen to me, how would that change if Paul was not in the picture or if something happened to Paul? Because I saw it happen firsthand with a friend of mine who fell off a ladder, got injured, business went under because he wasn't able to perform. And so that really woke me up to think, okay, I got to be able to run this business without me having to be the doer. I was still the guy that was involved in doing the task day after day after day. The decisions were all coming to me. Even the designs at the time, the installations were still being orchestrated, organized through me. And so after all that, I realized, okay, maybe I'm not the best guy for the job. Maybe I'm not the person that has to do this, but I had to have a mindset shift to understand that there was a better way to organize myself as a business owner and to put people in those places and train them better and to get them in a place where they became better because they were dedicated to that position. They became better than I ever was at that position. And then I saw it firsthand how my thoughts on that changed on what I was able to pay people. Because a lot of times I had this idea or this impression I couldn't pay people X amount of dollars because I myself was not making it. So how am I ever going to pay the guy that's ridiculously good at that position or a dedicated person for that position? And now I have dedicated people working in those positions that made more money than I did when as the business owner working in the business. So a lot of those things change as you learn these things. But the best thing you can do is put yourself in a room of guys that are already doing that. And the mindset shift happens when you hear from them, when you talk to them, when you see their energy, when you see how it actually does work. But when you're sitting in rooms with guys that all have a comparable resume and they're all fighting for the same turf, you're not going to change your mindset a whole lot. So I found it's much easier for me to sit in a room with less people, but people that are more successful than myself, and to realize that, hey, there are guys that are doing this on a much grander level than I am. And all of a sudden, it gave me the confidence to inject those philosophies into my own business. So that's one mindset shift that I had in my own experience of running my first business, which I still have to this day.
And how long did it take for you to have that mindset shift?
Well, I would like to sit here and say it happened like that, but it probably took much longer for me than it took most would take most people because I don't know. I think I was a little hard headed. My dad was a farmer, and if there's one thing my dad taught me is hard work, and it was all labor. Get up early, go to bed late. Get up early, go to bed late. The same routine, and it was just all about hard work. So I physically felt like I had to experience hard work physically in order to accomplish anything in life. And although I like to work, and use my hands and use my legs and use my brain, I've realized that I don't always have to break a sweat. I don't always have to use muscles or strain my back and put myself in a position on a daily basis to accomplish a whole lot. And although I might allow myself to do that on occasion, I still found that it's much better for me to concentrate in certain areas of my business and be more specific and intentional about what I do, um, than let those other people who are maybe better qualified for other positions to do some of that work. And listen, there's guys that actually, I have a 71-year-old that works for my landscape company. The guy could out shovel anyone any day of the week, 5 days a week, 10 hours straight. I mean, the guy puts in 3 hours. And he's Hispanic and he doesn't speak very good English. And he's worked for me a long time. This is kind of embarrassing. And one day I went up to him and I said, "How old are you?" Because we were talking about age. And he goes, "Oh, I'm twice your age." And I said, "Well, how old are you?" And his name is Francisco. And he's 71. And I thought I misheard him because he said it in Spanish. And so I looked at his brother, who his brother's 54, and I go, "How old did he say 71?" He said, "Yeah, he's 71." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me." And I'm like, "Well, Francisco, you need to retire. It's time to retire." And he goes, "No, no, no retire." And I was like, this guy will do this until he dies probably because he just enjoys it. And he's I mean he's an ox, man. His arms, his legs, he's he's built different, but he enjoys that, and he wouldn't want to be in the office. Matter of fact, he would be bored. But so often we think we have to be that guy that does it all as a business owner because most entrepreneurs and people that start their own businesses are hard workers. And so I think we just think we have to do the labor, but it's not the case.
No, I agree 100%. It's finding the right people on the bus and putting them in the right seat because there's people that can do a lot better than you can at a lot of things.
Yeah.
And some of it is just letting it go, right? You just got to let it go. I got a question here. Are you taking questions? Yes, I am taking questions. Ron Roby put great. Get around people that are really where you want to be at. Jason Diamond. Yep, it is so true. So I have a HVAC have huge summers, as you can imagine, with the heat. Want to start a Christmas light business? I have questions, and here's the questions coming on. Because if you all have questions, definitely ask. I don't know why it keeps sending this to the center of the screen. Is Paul going to be at the Houston training? No, he is not going to be at the Houston training. He is only going to be in the Charlotte training. So that's the one that's coming up in a couple of weeks, next week or two. That's the one where he will be at. Is it too late to get training going to the first into my first year? It is not. I've had people get it at the end of I always talk about Jeremy Main. He was at it was like the Halloween weekend. He ended up doing 30,000 his first year. Last year he did a half a million. This year he probably gonna do a million. We got Justin. Is yard signs the best marketing or paid ads? I mean, I'll hit on it. So you have an HVAC building. So is yard signs the best marketing or paid ads? So we'll hit that question first. So here's what I always tell people is yard signs work amazing for Christmas lights. They do very well for Christmas lights. They they work so well that I will say that there's not hardly another marketing thing out there that I know that for a fact will work as good as yard signs. And then obviously you do have paid ads. Facebook ads do pretty good for a lot of people. Google ads do depends on where your area is and how many people are in your area. They can do okay also. What's your thoughts on that question there first, Paul? I know what you're going to
Well,
say.
I'm
Yard
in the
signs don't
sign
work.
business, so it'd be kind of foolish for me to say that signs don't work. Yeah, signs absolutely work, especially, I mean, in my experience of being in the home service industry, I find them to be some of the cheapest form of advertisement possible. I think it has a lot to do with design and placement. I see a lot of yard signs that aren't well designed, and I see a lot that aren't placed well. So my concentration as far as placement is to put them in the areas where I want the business or where those people shop. So specifically with yard signs, I'm gonna hit whether if you're speaking of Christmas lights, I think if you're in the HVAC business, everybody needs HVAC. I don't believe everyone needs Christmas lights, or I'll put it this way: not everyone is my client. HVAC, I would say you're probably in a different situation. You probably put their signs anywhere, and you'll be all right. But I also think design's going to matter. Most people complicate the yard signs and put way too much information. And I'll tell you, it generally speaking, it really doesn't matter if your logo or your name's on there. It's just what do you do? How do you get in touch with them? That just be very specific. What is it? What service is it that you provide? And then how do you contact you? Um, yeah, I definitely think yard signs are a great form of advertisement, and everyone should be using them, except
Um,
for the guys in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
best way to buy materials in bulk or per job, you are going to kind of buy them in bulk because they come in 1,000 foot rolls. So obviously, I always say that an average house is 200, which that's a little high. It's usually the average is around 160, 170, 175, depending on how big your houses are in your area, is going to be the average house that you're going to install. But I always say 200 just so that way you know you got enough material, because the last thing you're going to want to do is run out of materials. Obviously, you can go to christmaslight.io and get your materials there. I appreciate it. But you can do the starter packs, and the starter packs have different amount. But even if you do those, make sure you get more females and more um, extension cord, because you're going to use way more than you ever think. So your extension cord, you're going to use a crap ton of it because you actually make it on your own, and you use a lot of females. So those are the two things that I would highly suggest. And then your last question is subbing out roofing, $3 a foot to a roofing company. I would say that's probably a little. You're giving away a lot of profit at that point. A lot of people I know that do the subbing out will sub it out for $1 a foot or less. I do know some people that do $2 a foot, but $3 a foot would be a lot. So that would be my side of it. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
I'm
Um,
assuming Justin's talking about subbing out the installation.
that's what I'm assuming. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your opinion is, Jason. I would avoid subbing out installation if you could. I I don't like that concept at all. I've heard guys talk about that, but I want to control the product delivery more than anything. Uh, I c- there's certain aspects of the business I can only control so much of it. Obviously, if you're buying product, you might get a bad batch of something, but I can make a lot of that up on the service side of things. It's just like in a restaurant business. If the cook does a bad job and he delivers a bad steak, it's not cooked right, the service will have a lot of dependency on how well that customer's response is to the whole situation. And so I always want to be in control of the service aspect of things more than anything.
And that's something, and I kind of agree with you on that. Keeping it on your own, because then you can, because if you're subbing it out, and I'm assuming you're going to 1099 them or whatever it is, are they taking when they're doing the jobs, are they doing that? You know, you got to make sure, obviously, you got to make sure they have their insurance and their workers' comp on their guys. So that way, if they fall off, you don't get sued yourself. And those kind of things too. But like, I'm kind of with you on, you can't control the product at that point of what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it's not that it's hard, it's just a matter of they don't care a lot of times because they're only making $1 or two, even at $3 a foot. They don't care. They just getting the lights up at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the thing, guys. It don't matter how old you are or how young you are. You can start a business. Odin started when he was 15 years old. He couldn't even drive. Last year, he was able to drive. He's 16, and he did fairly well for himself for being a 16-year-old. So that is pretty awesome. I'm excited to see when the young people. He came to our class last or this in the spring, and asked lots of questions, and he's going to hit $150,000 this year. And so that's what you can do with the Christmas light business. Again, it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. That is limiting beliefs at the end of the day, and so that's where you are. Um,
Yeah, 'cause look how young me and Jason are. I mean,
right,
we're
right.
really young. We're still in it.
I still got most of my hair, and it's not all gray. I have seen one. Actually, haven't seen one thing happening here lately. Is I can't. That fine print is starting to get smaller and smaller and invisible, kind of. So might have to look at getting some readers before too long.
Well, to
So
answer your question, Odin, I do think you should put your website on the sign. And I would ask this of anyone who's considering putting their website on the sign. Make sure it's legible, one, but also make sure it's an easy to remember website. So many people have complicated domain names, and I don't understand why that is. You want to keep it simple and to the point. So anyone seeing your sign for a few seconds, the average time frame that someone sees a yard time is 3 seconds. Now, there's obviously the case where a person might be pulled up to a stoplight and your sign just happens to be present at that intersection. They might get to see it for longer than 3 seconds. 3 seconds is it. So a website could be a very effective, contact if it says Christmas lights and then whatever the domain is. But if it's something, like real long and it's got a generic way of saying it, someone's going to misspell it. And when they write it down or they go back to their memory bank, what was the name of that? So you don't want that. But I definitely think having the website on the sign is a necessity. Just make sure your domain is legible and it's easy to remember and it's short. Try to make if you got a long name, try to find a way to make it shorter
Yep.
for your domain.
Um, Thanks for your input. I know you recommend getting off the truck, but I know that I will be on the truck for at least this season. What's some advice that you can give? Get off the truck.
Get off of it. uh, yeah.
I think
Uh,
this kind of comes back to mindset that and systems, right? The two things that grow businesses is mindset and systems. You got to have a mindset that you're going to get off the truck and that you believe in people and that they can do it. And if you say things like you can't find no good help, well, you're probably right. You're never going to find good help because you're speaking it into existence, right? And so that's kind of the mindset of getting off the truck. And then the other thing that I would say too is you have to have systems in place. I mean, you've got systems in place, but if you don't have them written down, videoed, and you don't even have to use your videos, like you don't have to sit down and make a video on how to wrap a tree. If I've made a video, I'll tell you somebody that's done this. This guy right here that's done very well. He has, not that guy, this guy right here, Sam Else, right? He has a whole bunch of videos. And he had whole systems of how to do pressure washing, how to do Christmas lights, and a bunch of them are my videos and other people's videos that he uses and to have these systems in place so that way you can get off the truck. Because if you don't have systems and checklists and stuff like that, then how can you see if it's right? That's the whole point of it. So that is definitely something that you have to look at and do this. And David Hamill said he started his Christmas light business at 60. So Paul's looking for a book or something.
I was, but I don't have it here. It's at home. Um, there's so many books I could give you. Uh, so I would. What was that? I don't know the guy's name that asked that question. I think it was.
Superior exterior.
Yeah. So superior exterior. What I would tell you is one of the flawed mindsets I had for a long time was I always presupposed that I couldn't do certain things. And another thing is I always had this idea that one day I will do whatever it is I knew I should do, right? And I don't know your situation, and I'm not at all recommending you just go out and hire somebody you don't want to, but I do think that if you're in a situation where it's only you have to start considering how much time it's costing you to be in the field, to be on the truck, to be installing, or in the event, like I mentioned before, if something were to happen to you, what happens to the business? So, in consideration of those things, could it be possible that you could find someone that could do the truck work and maybe you assist them, but maybe from a standpoint of being on the truck, you're just scheduling it. You're just making sure they have the materials. Maybe you're not completely off the truck, but you're not actually doing the installs. But I would really read the book E Myth. I think that is a very good starter book for people that feel like they have to do all the work. Um, I think another thing that had a flawed mentality on for a long time was I never really felt like anyone could do it as well as I could. And especially if you're getting started, you want to be the guy that is hands on. But as you recall, Jason, when I first met you, I brought an employee before I even got into the Christmas light industry, and I brought that employee with the intention of putting him on the truck. Now, I did go out in the field the first week and a half because I wanted to get my hands on it. I wanted to help do some installs. And throughout that season, I did a handful of installs. But since then, other than a situational thing, I've not been on the truck. I don't help out. I don't have to. I have a much better qualified staff. Matter of fact, one of our guys on our management team, he's a full-time guy. He was talking today. And we had a Elf Pros meeting today, and all of our full-time guys were in attendance. And so we have like 4 or 5 full-time guys that are here all year round. And long story short, that guy can run laps around me. And I've been in the business longer than he has. I've been a business owner for 25 years, but he can run laps around me. Why? Because he's more experienced in the field doing it. And then, yeah, he knows my qualifications over here, right? And he respects what I bring to the table. And so I think understanding that if you really want to grow a good business, it really relies on you making those kind of decisions up front. And I think the earlier you make those decisions, the better. The quicker you get yourself off the truck, the better. So rather than keep thinking that one day you'd like to do that, try to implement a way to do it now, sooner than later. And in the process that takes place in most people's minds is I can't afford it. Well, you can't afford not to. Because like I said, if you get hurt, you're done. If you wait a year, you're just prolonging the situation. So
I've actually had this conversation last week with another guy talking about he was only on the truck his first year. The second year he wasn't on the truck. But there's other things that you can look at, right? One, when you're on the truck, that's a $20 an hour task, 20, $30 an hour. You can pay somebody 20, $30 an hour to do that job, and they're probably going to do it better than you. But as you start growing and as you get off the truck, I know this is a this can be a tough transition to get off the truck. I actually have another guy that just got off the truck that he's struggling of like, what do I do? Right? Because I'm really good at on the truck. Now what do I do when I get off the truck? And what do I do? You're like, what do I do? And I see this struggle a lot with people first getting off the truck, especially if you are that type of person, right? If you're the technician mindset, it can be really hard to pull and figure out what you need to do while you're off the truck. And there is a lot of things that you can start doing and focusing on and growing by getting off the truck. And it's not always easy, but it can be done and you learn it. And once you figure it out, you learn what you might be good at. And here's the thing, getting off the truck is one thing, and then a lot of people get into the point of sales, and they do all the marketing, and they're into that job, and then and they're doing the bookkeeping, they're doing all that. You also got to get all the truck on that too, because some of that you're not able to do. You're like, well, I can do all the bookkeeping, I can do all this stuff now that I wasn't doing before, but you're putting yourself right back into a position that you can't envision where this business is going to go at in 10 years, and what your goal is to be able to hit $100 million or 10 million or 5 million or $1 million a year, right? You will never get out of that because you're always in the trenches and you're always trying to figure out that one thing. And you know I put it at this way with the person I was talking with is, you know, as a team, you have a head coach. You can have an amazing offense guy, but you have crappy defense. Well, they're going to score just as much as you are, and you're both not going to win. And so that's why it's important that each person on your team has their spot, so that way you can grow as a team and their specialty in that, and they're way better than you are. And that's the whole point of what you're trying to do at the end of the day.
yeah,
We got we got Paul Grismo from Washington.
what's up,
What's up?
Paul?
What's up? Sam said definitely website domain should be under 5 characters long plus .com if you can. Sometimes that's hard to do. Start wearing your merch right now, guys. People are starting to look. I agree on this. Um, you will get people being like, you get two classes of people. One, Christmas is way too far away, or I love Christmas. And that's really cool to be able to hear that. Are you going to do a deep dive into business structure at your next in person training? So the next one is going to be with Paul. It's going to be with Dan and Lindy. We're going to kind of go over systems. I go over a lot of marketing. I don't know what Paul's going to go over exactly, but he always brings amazing. What do you, Paul's coming up there? What are you going to bring to the class this week, next week?
Well, yeah, next week. I am gonna. I'll share some of this technique, but I've never considered myself a really good salesperson as far as sales techniques, but over the years, I've grown in my confidence in selling my product because I believe in what I'm selling. And one of the things that I'm going to share is just some techniques I've learned um, without having to force a sale and really just educating your customer. And I think the last person that comment was with outdoor lighting. I do a lot of outdoor lighting, and I just experienced this. I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday or the day before. And long story short, there was this back and forth conversation that had been going on with the sales rep from our company and the customer, and they were about to do a demo, but basically we have some minimums, and we had some conversations that we looked at this particular house, and this is a rather big home on 5 acres with lots of landscape. Long story short, the customer said they had already worked with another landscape lighting company, and they were getting quotes of $8,000. So they were upfront with us about that. But when in reality, they told us how many fixtures there were, and there was a total of 17 fixtures. And right away, looking at this house, I did just a takeoff on the house alone. I'm like, look, there's 25 fixtures easily on the front yard, not including pathway lights. So having that understanding of that allowed me to jump on the phone call with the person. I said, hey, do you mind if I interject and y'all can watch me educate the customer? And these are the kind of techniques I people can pick up on as we do role play. So I'd love to do some role play. And I've got some materials that I'm going to be sharing during that and doing what I did and what I've learned to do and how I teach my staff. But I had a new sales manager. I wanted him to see me do this in real time. So basically, what I did is I educated the customer, and the customer acknowledged that, hey, I don't know anything about lighting. You and this other guy are the most information I've ever received. And I, without seeing the quote, I told him, I said, well, I can tell you right now, just based on the information you're giving me, they're doing all up lights, and all they're doing is spotlighting the house. And that's not good. I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything other than a design here. And the design will allow me to provide fixtures, and the design will allow me to do uplight, downlight, sidelight. I'll be using different fixtures. I won't be using the same fixtures. And so I explained Kelvins and viewing angles. And by the time it was all said and done, I mean, this guy's listened to me ramble for 5 minutes. And he said, he goes, yeah, I've definitely learned a lot in the last few minutes. Yeah, more than I did from the other guy. And I told him flat out, I said, "Look, you're looking at $20,000 minimum to do just a house, and that's not including all the things I see with your landscape." And for him, I know going into this, he had no concept of what this was going to cost him. And Jason, you've heard this story, but I'll share it again. It's like I had no concept of what it was going to cost me when I bought my first hot tub. I went in there thinking it was gonna cost $5,000 to $10,000, and you've heard the story of how the guy educated me on all the quality features of the hot tub I needed, and I ended up paying 22,000. So, I think a lot of that comes with experience, and it comes with certain objection methods that people learn over time. And so, I better plug in before we, lose power here because my battery's dying. There we go. Plugged into my phone. But anyways, those are some of the things I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over giving people the ultimate experience and being an the most experienced guy in your business.
I want to hit on something too that kind of changes your mindset too, right? You just said you were going to go in and pay $5,000 to $8,000 for a hot tub and came out buying a $22,000 hot tub. It's one of those things that, and I know sometimes you can't do this, but it's getting into the mindset of your customers and what they're looking for and what they do, right? Are you spending that kind of money to understand what they're dealing with and what understanding how time is so valuable, and that's what, at the end of the day, that's what we're selling is time. And so, the whole thing of buying things like that or going to restaurants that maybe you wouldn't always go to and spending extra is a little bit different, right? Maybe it's you're getting your house clean. Maybe it's something that's different that changes your mindset at the end of the day is important to understand what your customers are going through. A lot of times I understand and I know that, you know, I I was poor when I grew up, right? And we never had any of those things. Nothing. We did
Yep.
everything our own self. And that's not what our customers think. And when we're trying to do what we think versus what our customer thinks, it's two different things at the end of the day. A $2,000 average ticket is amazing for them to have a memory that's going to be amazing memory for the rest of their life. That when their grandkid come over is priceless. $2,000 was cheap, right? But we would have think, well, it's just Christmas lights. I'm just going to go put them up myself and not worry about falling off the roof. And now I can't do my job that makes me $300,000, $400,000 a year because I'm falling off the roof and now I can't support my family. So it's a different mindset of it. A $2,000 average ticket for someone making $50,000 is a lot of freaking money. But $2,000 that they have an average of two to $300,000, that's nothing at the end of the day. So just a food for thought on that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Um, I think you probably see this more than I do, Jason, but a lot of these guys within your group and other groups, I've seen it. It's like they don't believe it's worth whatever, $8, $9, $10, $12. Well, if you don't believe it's worth that, then guess what? It's not. It's not. And the reality is you don't understand the mentality of the people that do believe that it's worth that. I had a guy that was working for me in sales, and I heard him on the phone telling the prices. And when he was sharing our minimums, for example, and then he was sharing with them our average pricing. So we'll in our when we're having this initial conversation on the phone with people, we're telling them, hey, our minimum is 1750. Our average ticket's $3,000. When we have that conversation with people, they'll tell in the tonality, they'll tell the way you say that whether they think it's worth it or not. Now, they might not initially understand that it's going to cost that much, but a lot of how you put it and the way you say it is going to resonate in the way they think about it from that point on. But this guy was terrible at doing it, and I overheard him. And the person right away said, "Well, I'm gonna have to talk to my husband. I'll get back to you." And I got off. He got off the phone. I looked at him and I said, "Hey, you actually ruined that the minute you spoke it. When you spoke the price." And right away, he was like, "Well, of course, they thought it was too expensive." I'm like, "No, you thought it was too expensive. You thought it wasn't worth it, and they recognized that, and therefore it was too expensive. It wasn't." And so a lot of it has to do with just the way you present it, and the way your tonality is, the way you express that. And so a lot of these things are things that I suggest to people to role play, to learn how to record yourself and hear yourself on how you express that. The other thing I would tell you is go decorate your own home. See how your wife responds, or decorate a friend's home. Do a freebie for a buddy, and see how he responds. You got to believe in the product you're selling. If you don't believe in it, don't do it. Not everyone should be in business, and you definitely shouldn't just because they're good at one business doesn't mean you should do another business.
Alex Hormozy talks about this here of about go read your reviews. Go read 10 reviews before you go out, and then every day. And then the other one is go buy the product, because I know he talks about how there was a guy that sold pots and pans, and he came to the company, was a stop salesman over here, came over here, couldn't sell nothing until he bought his own pots and pans and spent his own money on it. And guess what? Now he sells a crap ton of it because he believes in it, right? You believe in your own product. If you don't believe in it, your customer will be the first one to know that you don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So this is Sam, old Sammy Sam. What's your opinion on permanent lights versus temporary lighting? Who in the Indianapolis area is worth subcontracting permanent lights to? I know we can sell a lot of them if we push it. So, what is your opinion on permanent lighting?
I'll plead the fifth on this one. I have different opinions about it. I mean, obviously, permanent lights are a thing, right? It's very popular. Um, Traditionally speaking, I'm always gonna like the Christmas lights better for Christmas. If you find the value of having seasonal lights for every season, then I think these permanent lights are a great opportunity. I do think that permanent lights specifically play a much bigger role on the commercial front than people recognize. And if you maybe don't have a good sales strategy for selling Christmas lights to commercial clients, absolutely go out of your way to to sell them the permanent lights, because every commercial client wants an advantage. And if you can light up the perimeter of their building with permanent lights, it's absolutely a great opportunity to get some business that way, and they'll pay more, and it's easier to install.
Here's what I will say: that Gobi did an amazing job of the permanent lighting side of things. But on the same hand, Gobi has done a crappy job because the quality is not there. And I've seen a lot of Gobi jobs that are blue now because they're not working properly or half of them are out. And I'm afraid that might hurt a little bit. So that's actually your selling point to not go with Gobi, right? And so my opinion on it is they are out there, and there's more and more that is coming, and there's more and more that are coming with permanent lights. But on the same note, um, it's not like Utah, right? Utah, you can go down any subdivision and you're going to see 3 or 4 sets of permanent light on every subdivision street you go down. Here, I know where about 10 or 15 houses are because I know where they are, and that's about all you can find around here. So again, I'm not, permanent light, it is starting to take off more and more. And the other thing too is you can sell it a little bit as, safety, because we can turn on the lights that, we can light up the house and it's not always dark, and architectural lighting. And yes, we can do some of that. But that's kind of my opinion on it. Brand wise, there's gazillion brands, you know, Invisalights, Million, there's a bunch of them. I know some people are going to say these are better versus these. I've seen pictures of both on the same house, and I tell you which one is 10 times better, but I'm not going to say it out loud now. But it is what it is. So,
One thing I will tell you is I just brought this up today, and in our Elf Pros meeting, we had a client that has been a faithful client to us for years, and they've gotten us to do their Christmas lights, and they're a decent client. They own a few dealerships, and the other night I was driving by their dealership and I saw lights all over their building. I'm like, what is that? And it was permanent lights. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't even offer them permanent lights because, truthfully speaking, I enjoy doing the Christmas lights. But because I had the mindset of I don't want them to do permanent lights. It probably should have been an offer, and shame on me, right? I mean, that was a bad business decision on my part. With the people who are doing Christmas lights now, I've always had it in my mind I don't want to offer them permanent lights unless they ask. Well, obviously they inquired somewhere and didn't even know we did it. And of course, I'm sure if I reached out to them, they'd be upset with themselves if they didn't use us for that, because the ones they did, it looked terrible. Um, but I do think the Invisalign product, and I'm not just saying it because you guys have it. It's just it's a great product. I was actually shocked at all the things I wanted to check to make sure when I was looking at the product, to see if I thought it was a good brand or not, and if it lived up to the test. It's a great. So if you want to do a lot of permanent lights on homes, yeah, Invisalign one of the better products out there.
Um, we're getting close to time here. Paul is legit, is what Paul says, because his name's Paul. What's up, Artie? Um,
Appreciate the call.
I don't know. We got questions here. What would be a good permanent lighting? I'm looking for 70, 80%. However, I have had a supplier suggest that 40 to 50% is good. What is your opinion on this? Well, I think one of my biggest opinions with you is you're in Canada, eh? And you got to pay all the other stuff, so you got to charge. Otherwise, you're going to be paying it all out in taxes before you ever make any money, and also getting it to you also. So,
I
uh,
can tell you that we're getting, depending on the type of install and how many feet, $30 to $40 a foot. So that's our going price for installing permanent lights.
how much are you getting?
$30 to $40 a foot.
Yeah, I'm going to have a tone of questions. I'm killing myself in the field. I love doing landscape lighting, but Christmas lighting is dangerous and cold in New York. Can't wait to meet you guys. Awesome. Uh,
Are you coming to the training
are you?
next
I
week?
think he is.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
When would you be? When would you and your husband be available? You must be asking about a question. Permanent lights suck. It's all about the magic of Christmas. I have a local construction company willing to share his customer base of 20,000 people to market Christmas light. He wants a piece of pie. How would you go over this, Jason? Thanks. I mean, if he's willing to share it and post it and push you, I mean, I'm willing to give 10% of it. I mean, you're going to pay that in marketing anyway. So if he pushes a $2,000 job, you give him 200 bucks. I mean, I'm not stingy at the end. I know some people be like, I would never give that much. Why not? You're going to pay 10% in marketing anyway. You should be spending 10 to 15% in marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just consider it a commission towards whatever jobs he brings to you.
Yeah. All right. So we are having an in-person training coming up, christmaslights.io/IPT. I would highly recommend this class. It is going to be in Charlotte. It is 3 days. The first day is all about Christmas lights, how to install them. If you already install them, I promise you, you'll probably learn other ways to install them and different systems and different ways to do things. Every time I've been do it, the last class guy was like, "Man, you just saved me about 3 hours." I was like, "How long is it taking you to do install?" He's like, "3 hours." I'm like, "Wow, you can't get them done that quick, but you probably can definitely get the job done in an hour." And so that's one of the things, the systems that you need to be able to do it, how to price it, how to do it. Um, Day one is all about Christmas lights. Day two is going to be awesome. It's going to be about marketing and sales and Paul and myself. And it's just going to be a lot. And then day three is permanent lights. Dan's going to do permanent lights. So you'll be able to know how to do permanent lights. It's definitely the biggest thing I would say, is yes, you're going to learn a lot in class. We'll do role play because I love to do role play, because I feel like it gets you all out of your comfort zone. And the biggest thing you have to do is get out of your comfort zone. If you want to grow this business, you have to get out of your comfort zone. If you are in your comfort zone, you will not grow this business, because in our comfort zones, we get comfortable and we don't want to do hard things. But you can do hard things. It's something that you can do, and you can do hard things. And so if you want to go, christmaslights.io/IPT for in-person training. It's going to be awesome. It's one of those things that as you keep growing your business, and I know people that come year after year to my class, and why? Because they learn year after year. They've come back and learn. I'm going to talk a lot about AI. There's a lot about AI. AI is changing every day. Now there's agents out there, right? And now agents can do stuff for you, and all the AI stuff. And I'll go over AI for about an hour, and just because it's relevant to our business and how to grow. And this weekend is not just about how to install Christmas lights or how to add our business, but how to grow a business, how to think bigger than what you were thinking. I always tell people, if you come to this class, you will make at least 30 to $100,000 if you take action. If you go back and don't take action, you're not going to make no money, because it's all about taking action. And, I will say it doesn't happen to everybody. I have had some people that are on the struggle bus, but they're still at it and they're still going for it. It is definitely going to be awesome. The networking will be worth its weight in gold, right? Come hang out, go eat dinner with us all. If you come to this class and don't eat dinner, you're robbing yourself. You're literally robbing yourself. It's the most important thing we do. I like to eat. Paul likes to eat. Um, and we like to go eat, and we usually close the places out. Like, they usually kick us out of the place, and that's okay. They can kick me out of the place, because you know what? I learned so much more here. If you want to grow your business, this is where you want to be at, is in Charlotte. It's not. The hotel isn't too bad either. If
Mhm.
it's only like 15 minutes from the airport. If you get there, you don't need to rent a car. You can literally Uber to it. Everything happens at the hotel. There's a bunch of restaurants right by the hotel. So you don't need to, I'm not even going to rent a car, because I know what it is. We do our class, we go to eat, we stay out till about 11 to midnight, and we go back and go to bed. That's normally how it goes. So there will be hands-on. We will be doing hands-on for the Christmas side and the permanent lights. We got a house that will be doing permanent lights and Christmas lights. So this is hands-on. This is not just watch me do it. We're going to do some hands-on portion of it. So we'll do the hands-on for Christmas lights and the hands-on for permanent lights. So it is, get your hands dirty, get it done. It isn't just watch Jason talk up here and blah 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 blah. It's This is what we're going to do to make it happen. So, what's your thoughts on it, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I look forward to it just because I get to meet new people. Networking in itself is worth it all for me. I I I don't do this for any other reason than to network with others, learn from others, and I enjoy that company. I enjoy being around guys that thrive in an environment of getting traction in their business. And I've learned from the rookie and I've learned from the veteran. And I feel that anyone who wants to be successful at any business, these are the type of things that are important, is just being around other guys, trying to network with them, learning the new tricks. We're always trying to expand our thoughts on different ideas on how to make our businesses better. And being in places like this always bring me to another level. Even as a trainer, right? Even as one of the guys that's part of the training, um, I probably take away more as, someone who gets to be part of it. So,
Yep. Yeti says, "Hope to get there. Don't hope. Hope don't get you nowhere. You just got to go. Right. You just got to make it happen." I heard that from John Maxwell. Was the first time he talked about hope. I hope I get there someday. There is no hope. Does nothing, right? There's no action in hope. He said, take the E off and you can hop there, but there is no such thing as hoping to get somewhere. So I still remember that to this day. Hearing him speak about that in person, which stuck to me really well. So
yeah, it looks like you have a good logo, so you got a good start, but definitely, I hope people come to the training I haven't met just because I love seeing the new guys. I love hearing from them. They bring a lot of value themselves just because they come from different walks of life, right? They come from different industries. They're taking a shot at this industry and they're trying to learn from us. But I guarantee you there'll be value distributed both ways. And I'm looking forward to meeting people from all over. I mean, obviously, And all these events, there's people that come from so far. Always amazes.
Superior put, how much is it? It is $1,000 for one, and if you bring your spouse, it is 500. If you have issues, send me a message.
Daniel, you should come. It's close.
He,
Come on.
he says, "See you in Charlotte, boys."
All right, that's all I'm talking about.
Daniel is actually in Orlando right now. Here's the thing, guys, right? Daniel's in Orlando. I always talk about Daniel because he's one that's done very well. And here's the thing, Daniel's actually in Paul's neighbor. He's not too far away from him. I wouldn't call competition because that is no such thing as competition. Paul don't believe in competition. But Daniel went down there in Florida and did some door knocking and closed a $14,000 job for his brother down there. Door
That's
knocking, $14,000 Christmas light job, door knocking. So yes, you can make money in door knocking. Jason, are you going to
that's
be at?
amazing. But listen, Daniel's a hustler, and you know what? The funny thing is, I've actually never met Daniel, but I will say that Daniel and I have had many conversations, and he has no problem networking. And he's pretty faithful at being on these calls, from what I can tell. And he's pretty faithful at picking people's brains, and obviously he shares a wealth of knowledge himself, and I love hearing from him. But that's the kind of thing you have to do. I mean, if you want to excel at anything, and I think I've even mentioned this, I might mention it last week. I go to a couple shows in different industries, and every time I go to those shows, there's a group of us that always go out to eat, and the amount of knowledge that's distributed at those mills is something that I would pay 10 times as much as I do to go to these events. And so, if anything, come to these events just to be around Jason and myself and others like us, not because we're not, you know, the best business owners in the world. We're not the best, whatever you call this podcast live guys. I hardly ever come on these things. Jason does a much better job than me. But the reality is the amount of things that we'll have similar situations, and we'll all work through it, and we'll talk about it, and we'll discuss how we have handled those situations. You take Jeremy Main. I mean, I remember the first time I met Jeremy, and just the amount of energy he has and he brings to the table, it gets you excited, right? To be in a room with someone like Jeremy. And then when you hear a little bit of his background and how the things that have worked for him. And Jeremy and myself, Jason, we all talk regularly. We get on phone calls together, we text each other. And it just I don't know how to explain it. I get all excited when I think about the fact that next week I'm gonna be around 20 plus guys that are in the same industry sharing the stresses of the industry, but at the same time, we're gonna be lifting each other up. And so, if anything comes just for those reasons alone, it's worth it.
Yep, for sure. Jason, are you going to the huge? I am not going to the huge because I actually scheduled a pressure washing beginner class that weekend, not knowing that it was that weekend. And I've already got like 4 guys signed up, 4 or 5 guys signed up for it. So I will not be there.
Here, this is what I wanna say about the huge. Will someone change the date for that? It's the worst date known to man. It's when school starts, it's when colleges start, it's the end of the summer. It's a terrible day. I wish they would change that because I never can attend either.
School starts this week, guys, for our kids. This next Wednesday they start.
Yeah.
So
A lot of kids start next week here.
So, well, hope to see you all in Charlotte again. It is, when is Charlotte? Someone, Sean asked, when is Charlotte? Next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Next Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So that is when it will be. I don't know if I am going to be on here on Sunday night. I am going to be driving to see my good friend because I do see good friends. And actually, I'm going to go up and help him do a permanent light job. I'm going up to see my good friend Jeremy Main to help him out. And so I will be driving Sunday night. So I don't know if I am going to be on there or not. Odin said I started today for school. And move it from Nashville too. Yeah, and I think they are moving it from Nashville this next year. I don't know where it's supposed to be at, but I know they were trying to get some content creators to do a big video and fly them to this whole new area and stuff. But I don't know where the new place is going to be at. Uh, so told my teacher straight up, they are second priority, and my business comes first.
That's awesome, Odin. How old are you, Odin?
He's 16.
Get out. Is Odin coming to the training?
No, he came. He's in school. So
Odin, you know what? I'm gonna contact your principal. You'll be fine. There's more important things in life.
no. So all righty. Well, we'll see you all later. See you in Charlotte, and talk at y'all later. Hang on, Paul.